The war was a falsehood, but only humanity knew. Story outline, 5 parts. Part 1. The Discovery Captain. Jake Morrison of the research vessel UES Horizon stumbles upon an abandoned alien communication array while investigating anomalous energy readings near the Vega system. His communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, manages to decode fragments of transmissions that reveal a startling truth. The centuries-long Galactic War between the Zephyrian Empire and the Krell Confederation has been entirely fabricated. The transmissions show that both alien civilizations have been secretly collaborating, using the war as a cover to systematically harvest resources from neutral worlds. Dozens of species have been manipulated into choosing sides, depleting their own resources to fuel what they believed was a righteous conflict. Dr. Kevin Sullivan, the ship's xenoarchaeologist, discovers evidence that this deception has been ongoing for over 800 Earth years. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter receives Jake's preliminary report with disbelief. The implications are staggering. Humanity has remained neutral in this conflict specifically because their preliminary study suggested something was amiss about the war's logistics and territorial claims. Part 2, the verification. Jake's team, now including engineer Tony Martinez and linguist Dr. Helen Foster, work frantically to gather more evidence. They discover a hidden facility on a barren moon where Zephyrian and Krell scientists work side by side, developing new technologies to maintain their elaborate deception. Security footage shows joint planning sessions where both species coordinate their battles to appear authentic while avoiding actual casualties. On Earth, Admiral Carter assembles a secret task force including intelligence analyst Ryan Clark and diplomatic specialist Maria Santos. They begin cross-referencing human observations of the war with the new intelligence. Every piece of evidence confirms Jake's findings. Battle damage is always superficial, casualty reports are fabricated, and both sides mysteriously avoid targeting each other's critical infrastructure. Dr. Sullivan makes another crucial discovery. The communication array contains records of other species who uncovered the truth. All of them suffered mysterious accidents or sudden plague outbreaks shortly after their governments received evidence of the deception. Part 3. The Trap. As Jake's team prepares to return to Earth with their evidence, they realize they're being tracked. Commander Steve Parker, Jake's second-in-command, detects multiple ships approaching from both Zephyrian and Krell territories. For the first time in the war's history, the two enemy fleets are operating in perfect coordination. The aliens spring their trap, demanding Jake surrender all evidence of their discovery. Ambassador Vera Nash of the Zephyrian Empire and General Korex of the Krell Confederation appear together via hologram, dropping their centuries-old pretense of hatred. They reveal that the war serves a greater purpose, preventing younger species from advancing technologically by keeping them focused on choosing sides in an endless conflict. However, Jake's team has already transmitted their findings to multiple human colonies using a new quantum communication system that the aliens haven't detected. Chief Engineer Tony Martinez reveals he's been secretly upgrading human ships with this technology for months, creating a communication network the alien alliance cannot intercept or jam. Around Part 4, the revelation, the truth spreads rapidly through human space via the quantum network. President Daniel Hayes calls an emergency session of the Human Colonial Council. Admiral Carter presents the evidence to stunned representatives from dozens of human worlds. The room erupts as the implications become clear. Not only have two major galactic powers been deceiving everyone, but they've been responsible for countless deaths and the stunting of galactic civilization. Meanwhile, Jake's ship fights a running battle against the joint alien fleet. Pilot Officer Grace Kim performs incredible maneuvers, while Communications Officer Amy Rodriguez broadcasts the evidence on all frequencies, ensuring nearby neutral worlds receive the truth. Dr. Sullivan transmits detailed archaeological evidence, proving the aliens have done this before to other species. On the political front, Ambassador Carl Bennett begins secretly contacting other neutral species, sharing humanity's evidence. The response is explosive. The Altarian Republic, the Centauri Federation, and dozens of smaller civilizations begin their own investigations, finding similar evidence in their own territories. Part 5. The reckoning Jake's ship manages to escape and rendezvous with a hastily assembled human fleet, led by Admiral Carter aboard the flagship UES Independence. The human forces are joined by ships from every neutral species that receive their transmission. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's truly independent civilizations stand united against a common threat. The joint Zephyrian-Krell alliance attempts to maintain their deception, claiming the evidence is fabricated by human terrorists. However, their own panicked coordination betrays them. Live footage shows their enemy fleets working together, sharing resources and coordinating strategies against the truth-tellers. The final confrontation occurs at the nexus of the fabricated war zone. Captain Jake Morrison leads a combined fleet of truth-seekers against the alien alliance. The battle is swift but decisive. Centuries of deception have made the aliens complacent, while humanity and their new allies fight with the fury of the truly betrayed. In the aftermath, the galaxy begins to heal. The Zephyrian Empire and Krell Confederation are forced to dismantle their power structures and make reparations to the dozens of species they manipulated. Jake Morrison becomes the first human ambassador to the new Galactic Truth Coalition, while Admiral Carter leads the peacekeeping forces ensuring the former deceivers cannot restart their schemes. Dr. Sullivan's research reveals that humanity's natural skepticism and independent nature made them the only species capable of uncovering and acting on the truth. The story ends with the establishment of the verification protocols, new galactic laws requiring transparent evidence for any large-scale conflicts, ensuring such massive deception can never happen again. Character summary: Captain Jake Morrison, Discovery Leader; Human Fleet Commander; Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, Communications Officer; Key Evidence Transmitter; Dr. Kevin Sullivan, Xenoarchaeologist; Evidence Analyst; Admiral Lisa Carter, Earth Defense Leader; Fleet Commander Tony Martinez, Engineer; Quantum Communication Developer; Dr. Helen Foster, Linguist; Alien Communication Decoder Ryan Clark; Intelligence Analyst Maria Santos; Diplomatic Specialist Commander Steve Parker, Military Second in Command; Pilot Officer Grace Kim, Combat Pilot President; Daniel Hayes, Human Political Leader, Ambassador Carl; Bennett, the Interspecies Diplomat. Themes: truth versus comfortable lies, the power of independent thinking, unity against common deception, humanity's unique perspective in galactic affairs, the cost of manufactured conflict on civilization. This story emphasizes humanity's role as the galaxy's truth seekers, showcasing their skeptical nature and independent spirit as galactic strengths rather than weaknesses. Jake Morrison stood in the research lab aboard the UES Horizon, watching his team work with desperate energy. 3 days had passed since they discovered the alien communication array and the shocking truth it contained. The war that had raged across the galaxy for 800 years was nothing but an elaborate lie. Tony Martinez hunched over his engineering console, connecting cables and running diagnostics on the alien equipment they had salvaged. His hands moved quickly as he tried to extract more data from the damaged systems. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air in the lab. "Captain, I think I found something big," Tony said without looking up from his work. This array wasn't just for communication. It was part of a control network. Dr. Helen Foster moved closer to examine the readings on Tony's screen. As the ship's linguist, she had been working around the clock to decode the alien transmissions. Her eyes were red from exhaustion, but her voice remained steady. "The language patterns confirm it," Helen said, pointing to the scrolling text on her translation program. "These aren't battle reports or strategic communications. They're production schedules and resource allocation charts." Jake felt his stomach tighten. The evidence kept mounting, but part of him still hoped they were wrong. A fake war involving 2 entire civilizations seemed impossible. Yet every piece of data they found supported that incredible conclusion. Dr. Kevin Sullivan emerged from behind a stack of alien artifacts, looking grim. The xenoarchaeologist had been examining physical evidence from the array's database. His findings painted an even darker picture. "Captain, I've identified 17 different species that appear to have discovered this deception over the past 3 centuries, Kevin said, holding up a datapad. "According to these records, every single one of them suffered what the files call population reduction events within 2 years of their discovery." Amy Rodriguez looked up from her communications station. The young lieutenant had been monitoring all frequencies for any sign that their investigation had been detected. So far they remained hidden, but that could change at any moment. "Sir, I'm picking up increased chatter on both Zephyrian and Krell channels," Amy reported. "It's heavily encrypted, but the volume has tripled in the last 6 hours." Jake walked to the main viewing screen where a tactical display showed their current position. They were still hidden in the shadow of a dead planet, but that wouldn't protect them much longer. They needed more evidence, and they needed it fast. "Tony, how long until you can access the deeper files in that array?" Jake asked. "Give me 12 hours and I'll have everything," Tony replied. "But Captain, some of these files are massive. We're talking about detailed records going back centuries." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter paced in her office at Fleet Command reading Jake's preliminary report for the 5th time. The implications were staggering. If this information was accurate, it meant that humanity's decision to remain neutral in the Galactic War had been the right choice for reasons no one had imagined. Ryan. Clark knocked on her office door carrying another stack of intelligence reports. The analyst had been working with Maria Santos from the Diplomatic Corps to cross-reference human observations with Jake's findings. "Admiral, we've completed our analysis of every recorded battle in the war over the past 50 years, Ryan said, placing the reports on her desk. "The patterns are undeniable." Lisa gestured for him to continue. Ryan activated a holographic display showing battle locations throughout the galaxy. "Look at this," Ryan said, highlighting various points on the map. "Every major engagement follows the same pattern. Lots of energy signatures, lots of debris fields, but minimal actual casualties. Both sides always manage to evacuate their personnel just before the most devastating attacks." Maria Santos entered the office carrying her own set of files. Her diplomatic background gave her insights into the political aspects of the war that others might miss. "It gets worse," Admiral Maria said. "I've been reviewing trade records and resource shipments. Both the Zephyrian Empire and the Krell Confederation have been secretly purchasing massive quantities of raw materials from neutral worlds. Far more than any legitimate war effort would require." Lisa studied the data, trying to process its meaning. "Where are those materials going?" "That's what's so disturbing," Maria replied. "According to shipping manifests, they're being sent to contested border regions. But our long-range sensors show no major industrial activity in those areas." Back on the horizon, Jake's team had made another breakthrough. Tony had successfully accessed the array's main database, and what they found exceeded their worst fears. "Captain, you need to see this," Helen called out. Her translation program had unlocked a series of video files that showed meetings between high-ranking officials from both alien civilizations, the main screen filled with images of Zephyrian and Krell leaders sitting together in what appeared to be a luxurious conference room. They were discussing battle plans, but not in the way anyone would expect. "We need to stage another engagement near the Aldebaran system," said a Zephyrian admiral. "The humans have been asking too many questions about our casualty reports." A Krell general nodded in agreement. "My ships will arrive first and establish defensive positions. Your forces can attack from the northwest vector. Make sure the explosions are visible from long range, but keep actual damage to a minimum." Jake watched in horror as the recording continued. The two species that had supposedly been locked in mortal combat for centuries were coordinating their battles like actors rehearsing a play. Kevin made another disturbing discovery in the archaeological files. "Captain, I found records of a species called the Vorthon Collective. They discovered this deception about 100 years ago and tried to expose it." "What happened to them?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. According to these files, they suffered a sudden outbreak of what was officially classified as a rare cosmic plague. Their entire civilization collapsed within 18 months. Tony's hands flew over his console as he downloaded terabytes of data onto secure storage devices. "I'm copying everything, Captain. Production schedules, resource allocations, meeting transcripts, battle choreography. It's all here." Amy's console suddenly erupted with warning signals. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Both Zephyrian and Krell configurations." Jake's blood ran cold. "How many ships?" 15 vessels, sir. "They're moving to surround our position." The truth was spreading faster than the alien alliance could contain it. On dozens of human worlds, colonial governors were calling emergency sessions. The quantum communication network that Tony had secretly installed was proving its worth as encrypted messages flashed between star systems. But As Jake watched the alien ships close in, he realized that having the truth wasn't enough. They had to survive long enough to get it to the rest of the galaxy. The war might be fake, but the weapons pointed at his ship were very real. The alien ships closed in around the UES horizon like predators circling wounded prey. Jake Morrison watched the tactical display as 15 vessels took positions to block every escape route. His crew worked frantically at their stations, knowing that discovery meant certain death. "Captain, incoming transmission," Amy Rodriguez announced. "It's coming from both fleets simultaneously." Jake nodded grimly. "Put it on screen." The main viewer flickered to life, showing two figures that should have been mortal enemies standing side by side. Ambassador Vera Nash of the Zephyrian Empire stood next to General Corex of the Krell Confederation. For the first time in 800 years, representatives of both species appeared together without any pretense of hatred. "Captain Morrison." Vera Nash spoke first. Her voice carried the cold authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You have taken something that does not belong to you. Return our property immediately and your crew will be allowed to live." General Corex stepped forward. His reptilian features showed no emotion, but his words carried deadly menace. "Your species has always been troublesome. Too curious for your own good. This ends now." Jake felt his crew watching him. Steve Parker stood ready at the weapons console while Grace Kim had her hands hovering over the flight controls. Tony Martinez continued downloading data even as the alien ships powered up their weapons. "I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about," Jake replied calmly. "We're just conducting routine surveys in the system." Vera Nash's expression hardened. "Do not insult our intelligence, human. We know you accessed our communication array. We know you decoded our transmissions. Most importantly, we know you discovered information that your primitive species cannot be allowed to possess. The war between our peoples serves a greater purpose," General Corex added. "It maintains stability across the galaxy. Young species like yours need guidance and direction. Without our conflict to focus their attention, they become dangerous." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "Dangerous to whom?" "To you and your lies." "Dangerous to themselves," Vera Nash replied smoothly. "Do you think your species is ready for the truth? Do you think any species is ready to learn that their heroes died for nothing, that their sacrifices were meaningless? The war gives them purpose, meaning a reason to unite and strive for something greater." Behind Jake, Tony Martinez worked desperately to complete the data transfer. The quantum communication system he had installed was already transmitting compressed files to human colonies across the galaxy. Each packet contained devastating evidence of the centuries-long deception. "Captain, I'm reading weapons log from multiple ships," Steve Parker reported. "They're targeting our communication array." Jake realized the aliens' plan. They would destroy the Horizon's ability to transmit, then take their time extracting every piece of evidence the humans had gathered. After that, his crew would simply disappear like so many others before them. "Grace, prepare for emergency acceleration," Jake ordered. "All hands brace for evasive maneuvers." "Captain Morrison, you are making a grave mistake," General Corex said. "Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Continue this foolishness and we will ensure your species pays for your defiance." "You want to know what I think?" Jake replied. "I think you're terrified. Terrified that the truth is already spreading. Terrified that your house of cards is falling down." Tony looked up from his console with grim satisfaction. "Captain, transmission complete. Every major human colony now has copies of the data." Vera Nash's composure cracked for just a moment. "Impossible. We monitor all human communications." "Not the quantum network," Tony said with a smile. "Funny thing about quantum entanglement. It's instantaneous and impossible to intercept. The alien ships opened fire without warning. Energy beams lanced through space where the Horizon had been moments before. Grace Kim threw the ship into a spiraling dive that would have crushed a normal crew under the G-forces. "Return fire," Jake ordered. "Target their communication arrays." The Horizon's weapons spoke, answering the alien attack with precisely aimed shots. Steve Parker had studied the alien ship designs for years and knew exactly where to hit them. Explosions bloomed across several enemy vessels as their communication systems went dark. "Jump coordinates locked in, Captain," Grace reported. "But we need 30 seconds to charge the drive." 30 seconds felt like an eternity under the concentrated fire of 15 enemy ships. The Horizon's shields flared and sparked under the bombardment. Alarm klaxons wailed throughout the ship as damage reports flooded in. "Hull breach on Deck 7, someone shouted. "Emergency teams responding." Amy Rodriguez worked furiously at her station, broadcasting on every frequency she could access. The truth about the fake war went out on commercial channels, emergency bands, even entertainment networks. Any ship or station within range would receive the evidence regardless of their allegiance. "Captain, I'm picking up response signals," Amy called out over the noise of battle. "Multiple neutral species are acknowledging our transmissions." Through the chaos of combat, Jake saw something that filled him with hope. New ships were appearing on long-range sensors. Vessels from a dozen different species were converging on their location. The Altarian Republic, the Centauri Federation, even small independent worlds were sending everything they had. "It seems word is spreading faster than you anticipated," Jake told the alien commanders. General Korex snarled in frustration. "This changes nothing human. We will destroy you and every ship that comes to your aid." "The war must continue," Jake demanded. "What do you really gain from this deception?" Vera Nash's mask of diplomacy finally fell away completely. "Control, you fool. While the galaxy's children play at war, we harvest their resources, develop new technologies, expand our true territory. They send us their best ships, their finest warriors, their most precious materials, all in service of a conflict that benefits only us. Thousands of species have poured their wealth into our war machine," General Korex added proudly. "They compete for our favor, offer us tribute, beg for our protection, all while believing they're supporting a righteous cause." The horizon shuddered under another barrage, but Grace Kim's piloting kept them alive. She wove between the enemy ships, using their own formation against them. Several times alien vessels were forced to stop firing to avoid hitting their allies. 10 seconds to jump," Grace announced. Jake watched as the first neutral ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were still outnumbered, but no longer alone. The truth was spreading, and with it came allies humanity had never expected to find. "This isn't over," Vera Nash warned. "You have doomed your species to extinction." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but at least we'll die knowing the truth." The jump drive engaged, and the UES Horizon vanished into hyperspace, leaving the alien alliance to face a galaxy that was finally beginning to wake up. The emergency session of the Human Colonial Council had never seen anything like this. President Daniel Hayes stood before representatives from 47 human worlds, watching their faces change, from confusion to shock to rage, as Admiral Lisa Carter presented the evidence. The massive chamber buzzed with angry voices as the truth sank in. 800 years, shouted Governor Patricia Wells from New Boston Colony. 800 years of this lie, and we never knew. Admiral Carter activated the holographic display showing the decoded alien transmissions. Video recordings of Zephyrian and Krell leaders planning their fake battles played for the stunned assembly. The room fell silent as they watched enemies coordinate their deception. "The evidence is overwhelming," Carter said. "Captain Morrison's team has uncovered production schedules showing both species working together. They've been harvesting resources from neutral worlds while pretending to fight each other." Representative Alan Brooks from the Tau Ceti colonies stood up. His voice shook with barely controlled fury. "How many of our people died believing in this war? How many young men and women chose sides and never came home?" President Hayes raised his hand for silence. "The question now is what we do with this information. The aliens know we have it. They're already moving to contain the damage." Carl Bennett, the human ambassador to neutral worlds, appeared on the communication screen. He was calling from the diplomatic station at Alpha Centauri, where he had been secretly contacting other species governments. "Mr. President, I have reports from 17 different civilizations," Carl said. "The Altarian Republic has confirmed our findings with their own intelligence. The Centauri Federation is conducting emergency archaeological surveys of old battle sites. Every piece of evidence supports our conclusions." Meanwhile, in space near the dead planet where they had discovered the truth, Jake Morrison watched his scanner in amazement. Ships from dozens of different species were arriving every hour. The horizon had become the center of an impromptu fleet of truth-seekers and the angry betrayed. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Altarian flagship," Amy Rodriguez reported. The screen showed Commander Zalak of the Altarian Republic. His blue-scaled features showed the same rage that Jake felt burning in his own chest. Behind him, other alien officers worked frantically at their stations. "Captain Morrison, my government wishes to thank you for your courage," Zalak said. "We have begun our own investigation and found similar evidence in our archives. Battle damage that was too precise, casualty reports that never." quite added up fleet movements that made no strategic sense. Dr. Kevin Sullivan had been examining artifacts from several species that had joined their growing fleet. Each civilization brought their own pieces of the puzzle, and the picture they formed was horrifying. "Captain, I've documented evidence of this deception affecting 43 different species over the past 8 centuries, Kevin reported. The Zephyrians and Krell have been systematically draining the resources of half the galaxy. Tony Martinez monitored the quantum communication network he had created. Messages were flying between worlds as the truth spread faster than the Alien Alliance could stop it. Governments were recalling their fleets, examining their own records, conducting emergency sessions. The network is holding, Captain, Tony said. I'm showing active connections to over 300 worlds. The information is spreading exponentially. Grace Kim piloted the horizon through the growing fleet of Allied ships. Vessels that had never worked together before were forming defensive formations, sharing intelligence, coordinating their movements. The fake war had kept them apart, but the truth was bringing them together. On Earth, the revelations were causing massive political upheaval. President Hayes had called together every department head, every military commander, every diplomatic official to coordinate humanity's response. We need to assume the worst, Admiral Carter said. If this alliance has been deceiving the galaxy for 8 centuries, they won't hesitate to use extreme measures to protect their secret. Ryan Clark had been analyzing the threat level based on the evidence Jake's team had gathered. His findings were disturbing. Admiral, based on the production records we've seen, the Zephyrian Krell Alliance has access to technology and resources far beyond what either species has publicly demonstrated. Maria Santos brought news from her diplomatic contacts. I've been in touch with over 20 neutral governments. They're all conducting their own investigations, but they're also scared. 3 minor species have already reported unusual ship movements near their borders. The scope of the conspiracy was becoming clear. This wasn't just about faking a war. It was about controlling the development of galactic civilization itself. The Alien Alliance had positioned themselves as the galaxy's great powers, while secretly working together to keep everyone else weak and dependent. Dr. Helen Foster had been analyzing the linguistic patterns in the alien communications. Her findings revealed another layer to the deception. The language used in their private communications shows this conspiracy goes back even further than 800 years. Some of the root protocols date back over a millennium. President Hayes made the decision that would change everything. We're going public with all of it. Every piece of evidence, every document, every recording. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. Within hours, human diplomatic channels were broadcasting the evidence to every known civilization. Trade networks carried the information to remote colonies. Even pirate ships and smugglers were spreading the news through their underground networks. The response was immediate and explosive. On worlds throughout the galaxy, governments were falling as populations learned they had been manipulated for centuries. Military fleets were abandoning their posts to return home and protect their own people. The careful balance of power the Alien Alliance had maintained was collapsing. Jake watched his scanner as more ships continued to arrive. The ragtag fleet of truth seekers had grown into something resembling a real military force. Species that had been enemies just days before were now working together, united by their shared betrayal. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth, Amy announced. It's Admiral Carter. Carter's face appeared on screen. Behind her, Jake could see the bustling activity of Fleet Command as humanity mobilized for what might be the most important conflict in galactic history. Jake, we're sending everything we have, Carter said. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology we can spare. The other neutral species are doing the same. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's free peoples are united. Commander Steve Parker monitored the tactical situation as their allies organized into proper battle formations. Captain, I'm reading over 400 ships now. More arriving every hour. We've got everything from massive battleships to single-pilot fighters. The fake war that had divided the galaxy for 8 centuries was ending. In its place, something new was beginning. A real war fought not for territory or resources, but for the simple right to know the truth. The Alien Alliance had controlled the galaxy through deception and manipulation, but their victims were finally fighting back. Jake looked at his crew and saw determination in their faces. They had started this by accident, but they were going to finish it on purpose. The final battle began at the nexus of the fake war zone, where the Zephyrian Empire and Krell Confederation had staged their greatest deceptions. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Horizon, watching the massive fleet of truth-seekers prepare for combat. Over 800 ships from 40 different species formed the largest united force in galactic history. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the fleet from her flagship, UES Independence. Her voice carried across all communication channels as she addressed the assembled forces. Today we fight not for territory or conquest, but for something far more precious. We fight for truth itself. The enemy fleet that emerged from hyperspace was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zephyrian and Krell ships flew in perfect formation, no longer hiding their centuries of cooperation. Their vessels gleamed with advanced technology that they had kept hidden while pretending to be equals with younger species. Ambassador Vera Nash appeared on the communication screen one final time. Her diplomatic mask was gone, replaced by cold arrogance. You cannot win this fight. We have technology your primitive minds cannot comprehend. Weapons that can destroy entire star systems. Surrender now and we might allow some of your species to survive as servants. General Korak stood beside her, his reptilian features showing savage anticipation. We offered you the comfort of ignorance. You chose the pain of truth. Now you will learn why we rule this galaxy while you merely exist. Within it, Jake felt anger burning in his chest, but also something else, pride. His species had uncovered this massive lie and brought together enemies who had fought for centuries. Humanity's natural skepticism and refusal to accept easy answers had saved the galaxy. Open fire, Admiral Carter commanded. The space between the two fleets erupted in light and fury. Energy beams lanced across the void while missiles streaked toward their targets. The Allied fleet fought with desperate courage, knowing that defeat meant not just death, but the return of 8 centuries of lies. Grace Kim piloted the Horizon through the chaos with incredible skill. She wove between explosions and enemy fire, while Tony Martinez coordinated attacks with their allies through the quantum communication network. The system he had built was proving invaluable as ships from different species worked together seamlessly. Captain, the Altarian flagship is taking heavy damage, Amy Rodriguez reported. They're requesting assistance. Steve, target those Krell destroyers harassing the Altarians, Jake ordered. Grace, get us in close. The Horizon dove into the battle like a bird of prey. Steve Parker's precise targeting took out 2 enemy ships before they knew what hit them. Around them, other human vessels fought with the same determination their crews knowing they carried. The hopes of the galaxy. Dr. Kevin Sullivan monitored the archaeological scanners he had installed throughout the fleet. Even in battle, he was gathering evidence documenting the advanced technology the Alien Alliance had hidden for so long. Captain, I'm detecting energy signatures we've never seen before. They really have been holding back. But something strange was happening in the enemy ranks. Zephyrian and Krell ships that had worked together for centuries were starting to turn on each other. Without the unifying lie of their fake war-old rivalries, and suspicions were surfacing. Commander Zelak of the Altarian Republic appeared on Jake's screen. Captain Morrison, we're intercepting communications between enemy fleets. They're arguing about who's responsible for this disaster. Their alliance is falling apart. Jake smiled grimly. Lies are easier to maintain than the truth, but they're also more fragile. The battle raged for hours, but slowly the tide turned in favor of the Allied forces. Ship after ship from the Alien Alliance either fell to enemy fire or simply stopped fighting as their crews realized the futility of defending a lie. Some vessels even switched sides, bringing with them crucial intelligence about enemy positions and weaknesses. Tony Martinez worked frantically to coordinate the final assault. Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the enemy command ship. They're charging some kind of superweapon. Admiral Carter's voice came over the communication system. All ships concentrate fire on the enemy flagship. We cannot let them use that weapon. The combined firepower of 800 ships focused on the massive Zephyrian Krell command vessel. Its shields flared and sparked under the bombardment, but the weapon continued charging. Jake realized with horror that the Alien Alliance was prepared to destroy everything rather than lose control. Grace, ram them, Jake ordered without hesitation. Sir, that's suicide, Steve Parker protested. Maybe, but it's better than letting them murder billions of innocent people, Jake replied. All hands brace for impact. But before the Horizon could complete its kamikaze run, dozens of other ships had the same idea. Vessels from every species in the Allied fleet were converging on the enemy flagship, willing to sacrifice themselves to stop the superweapon. The alien commanders watched in shock. As their enemies chose death over submission, the combined impact of 50 ships hitting the command vessel at once created an explosion, visible from halfway across the star system. When the light faded, the alien flagship was gone, and with it, the leadership that had maintained the galaxy's greatest lie. The remaining enemy ships surrendered within hours. Without their commanders and facing overwhelming odds, the crew simply gave up. Many seemed relieved that the deception was finally over. In the aftermath, Jake found himself appointed as the first human ambassador to the new Galactic Truth Coalition. The organization was formed to ensure that such massive deception could never happen again. Every piece of information about the fake war was made public. Every government was required to submit to regular inspections and transparency protocols. Admiral Carter led the peacekeeping forces that dismantled the alien alliance's power structure. Hidden facilities were discovered throughout their territory containing advanced technology and vast stockpiles of resources stolen from neutral worlds. The wealth was returned to its rightful owners while the technology was shared freely among all species. Dr. Sullivan's research revealed the full scope of humanity's unique contribution to galactic civilization. Their natural skepticism and independent thinking had made them the only species capable of questioning the established order and acting on their doubts. Other civilizations had found pieces of the truth, but only humans had the courage to pursue it regardless of consequences. The fake war zones became monuments to the victims of the Great Deception. Plaques honored those who had died believing in a lie, while museums educated future generations about the importance of questioning authority and seeking truth. President Daniel Hayes signed the verification protocols. That became the foundation of the new galactic government. Every major decision required transparent evidence that could be examined by independent observers. No single species or alliance would ever again be able to manipulate others through deception. Jake stood on the observation deck of the space station that had become the Coalition's headquarters, watching ships from dozens of species working together in ways that had been impossible during the fake war. The galaxy was healing slowly but surely from 8 centuries of manipulation and lies. The war had been a falsehood, but the peace that followed was built on truth, and that made all the difference.